Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Lucid and Sai has joined me once again.
Hi, I'm Sai, and I'm back with Lucid once again.
Yes. So it's turn 17, and things are starting to heat up. We've got, I believe, the coalition starting their war against Mictlan reasonably soon, maybe this turn even. It looks like there's some war between Pangea and Mictlan here. Meanwhile, we've got Atlantis kind of firmly situated between two nations that it kind of doesn't really want to fight. Pythium, who's going to be foul vaporizing him, and Arethia, who, well, they can do all sorts of nasty magic. We've got Midgard, which I think is pretty much dead, but dying to Agartha and Tianchi attacking them. And then we got a bunch of people, like I mentioned, positioning to fight the Mictlan, and we have Arco and Ulm, which is kind of, I think it's like a really funny thing because I feel like Arco was kind of rude in how they expanded and have done Diplo with people, but it kind
Exceptionally
of
so, yes.
doesn't matter. Like, I think they just landed themselves in a great first war, and it doesn't matter if you're rude if you win in the 1v1 kind of. Kind of. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it only really matters moving forward. For the first war, it really is just looking like a 1v1, and
Yeah.
it's just a very advantageous matchup for Arco, which we'd kind of discussed even before the war actually broke out.
Okay, and okay, very funny. We have a message from Arco to kick this off. Loo! These guys need more crossbows like Christopher Walken needs more cowbell. I mean,
I mean, he's right. Crossbows are kind of the only effective troop in Ulm's arsenal, and he doesn't have the scales to produce enough of them.
I think he's making fun of them for making crossbows.
No,
Uh,
it's haven't you seen that skit?
yeah, it's Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah.
No, more cowbell. And then they keep doing it. I thought it was okay. That's true, though. They do actually need more crossbows.
Yeah. I mean, he also kind of needs some sort of effective magic, which is just rough.
Right, right. And we were saying, like, body ethereal, luck, those things could be okay. Body ethereal is really good against elephants, but
hmm The most effective thing because it blocks the damage completely as opposed to just mitigating it.
right. Okay, and then we have a message from Mictlan. Toldi, the diplomancer, managed to loan the Iron Throne to Zabalba. The front is that it was taken via threat. Vedheim is now responding to Diplo again, and I need this to become a 2v1. That would be nice. My initial battle plans are my usual fare, Fabian tactics. I hope to avoid small and useless engagements and possibly move only in force to protect the core lands, roughly cap circle forts, large farm in the northeast. Yeah. To combat the overwhelming ranged firepower of the two Scales nations, we need to move the Jaguars in masses, which means we can't split forces and defend everything. We need a singular, decisive battle against both foes. Yeah. Neighbors may need this before they join in. Yeah. And I had asked you last time, I think we were perusing ahead, what
Oh yeah,
Fabian tactics were. Maybe you
right,
want to give
right, yes. So
the explanation.
sure, yeah. So there was a Roman general named Fabius who was charged with the defense against Hannibal after he invaded through the Alps. And his tactic was to basically not fight. So they would hide in walled cities or other like fortifications. And Hannibal's army at the time had a lot of auxiliaries, including a lot of Gauls and other like people that he was basically recruiting that also just wanted to go fight the Romans and get some loot. And they didn't really have capable siege tactics, like in terms of like any of their
Mm,
supporting forces. And they also didn't have any local resupply because they weren't able to actually like successfully land ships reliably in northern Italy. And they also didn't really have great communication because, this is ancient times. It wasn't like they could
mm-hmm.
just call them up and figure out where they should meet. So that meant that Hannibal basically needed to fight the Romans and win in order to actually accomplish anything. And as long as he was just like, marching around and like basically only taking easy pickings, then the Romans would win eventually. In history, they didn't actually listen to Fabius for a while, and they replaced him with another general who had the decisive loss at Cannae, where Hannibal just like destroyed the Roman forces, and then they put Fabius back in charge. But Fabian tactics essentially means avoiding battles entirely and fighting or like trying to starve out the enemy.
Yeah. I think actually it's actually kind of interesting. I know more about the American Civil War and stuff, but that's kind of the tactic that General Johnston took as he was retreating from Sherman's army, marching back towards Atlanta. And he also, like Fabius, got replaced, and by somebody that would go kind of take a fight to the Union, and he proceeded to get his ass kicked. And I believe they put Johnston back in charge after that. I can't remember if they put Johnston back in. I think they did, but it was after. And it's the kind of thing, right? If you're like outnumbered, it's interesting that they were actually. I guess Fabius ended up not ever taking a decisive battle against Carthage until like the Gauls or whoever retreated, or left.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't even be fair to say they retreated. They basically just went home.
Right.
But yeah, he didn't fight the auxiliaries that had come with Hannibal at all.
Right. And it's interesting because, like in the case of the American South, they like after they had if you don't have enough forces to take a straight up fight, and then you lose like 60-70% of your army, then you definitely don't have enough forces. And unfortunately for Johnston, none of the Union guys like went home because their ticket was up or something. They stayed and conquered. So
yeah, we kind of saw something similar to that mistake happen with Midgard, where he didn't have enough guys to take a straight fight, but he went for one anyways.
Right. And I applaud him for doing it if it would have worked. Even if it was just like purely Pyrrhic, but he like actually won the fight, but like pretty much everything lost. I think you, as a mindset, and that's actually my one quibble with the use of the word Fabian tactics here, is like this implies like actually having your main army and not engaging theirs. And I think that's actually the wrong way to fight into a coalition. You're guaranteeing yourself to lose. It's fine to avoid the small and useless engagements and to not get defeated in detail, but you absolutely must basically take big fights when they're presented to you if you can win. Like if you're sure to lose, then you're kind of screwed. Like,
Yeah, you have to wait for something else to change.
Right. So, but the thing is when somebody's attacking you and they're like in your cap circle or right adjacent to it, if you don't have something you can do with literally all the troops you've made all game and all of your mages and win while they're kind of wandering into your land with some troops they made and, 6 mages, then, yeah, you kind of deserve to lose that. So,
yeah, I think that Mictlan's idea of trying to take individual decisive engagements on their forts is probably the right way to do it.
Right.
But the big problem that he's going to be facing is that he is using a strategy that's relying basically on having these like hordes of sacreds, and they're fighting in melee. And obviously the ideal is that they're going to trade well and hit above their pay grade.
Right.
But you're still using melee troops to fight the other dude's armies, so you're going to suffer attrition. So that means that even if he wins, he can just get overwhelmed by being outproduced, and it's just a matter of how efficiently he's going to die, rather than having some trick that he can pull that like suddenly flips it. Something like the foul vapors or rigor grip of winter type plays, where you win a battle without losing a significant portion of your units.
Yeah. It can depend though, because it could be like you take a Pyrrhic win, you suffer a lot of attrition, but that might be enough to mobilize a neighbor. And we'll have to look at this, who the actual neighbors are of the coalition against Mictlan, and see who might actually draw swords should a certain coalition member take a major loss. To keep moving, I'm only here to club things with Jaguar warriors. To do so, Toldi has held me back from a real Hellbless because he wanted these things called scales. These are probably the weakest Jaguar warriors I've used, but they'll do. Our enemies have massed slingers and crossbows in hopes they can take us down that way. Considering each Jaguar warrior has about 50 HP with this build, it should be okay if we have critical mass. The real concern is attack rear from Pangea, either Harpies or Centaurs. Otherwise, I think our Sacreds win brawls even under massed ranged fire. If both players are trying to brute force this, we have the advantage. Rip and tear.
Yeah, so the advantage of the Benjaminite slingers is that they're cheap and they're dual wielders, and the slings aren't totally useless against the Jaguars. Right. So they'll get little dinks in, and that's fine. And then they'll go to melee, and then they'll actually deal damage.
Right.
by comparison, with Pangea, with the Satyr sniper-focused army composition, he is actually planning on killing stuff with range damage and using his tank line to basically just be as durable as possible.
Yeah, and that's a pretty tough. I mean, Mictlan has a lot of strength, and they have big two-handed weapons on the Jags. Well, not big, but medium-sized two-handed weapons. So the Jaguars will be able to punch through, I believe, a lot of the Pangean front line. And in some ways, I feel like Pan might be the stronger matchup for them. Because also, the crossbows aren't nearly as good against... I mean, crossbows aren't amazing against Jaguars because they don't really have much protection.
Yeah, the typical advantage of crossbows is that they're able to deal with protection so much better, and many of the units in LA have low hit points, so they become, really great.
Right.
Whereas the Benjaminite slingers, by comparison, are often less useful just because they suck against crossbows or even against enemy range fire in general, because they themselves have low protection, but they'll trade up against Jaguars. So it's kind of like Gath has like a very specific unit matchup, which in my opinion still requires buffs to like excel, but Gath can provide those buffs. Whereas Pangea has kind of a general use army that's just kind of good against most things until you get like certain spells out. And Mictlan can't get like anti-arrow specific magic, at least not very easily. Like they have an air hero, but you're never going to see that with this misfortune thing.
Right.
And I think that hero also has a very late turn timer. I think it's like turn 20 or something.
I'll go ahead and jump to Gath. We'll do the Midgard in a minute. I think we should probably look at the map here between the coalition forces. Hey there,
that's what we've been talking about.
Right. Hey there, according to Zabalba, Mictlan suggested them the Throne of Iron in exchange for not attacking him. Or maybe they got a more complex deal. Vettiheim is obviously not happy about that at all. And I warned Zabalba about attacking the caves on my border in a similar fashion. Okay, interesting, because you were thinking if Zabalba was going to attack, they would raid like a bunch of the border provinces, and here Gath is saying I didn't want him to touch it. Which is interesting because it seems that I can't tell if Vetti's unhappy that Zabalba is not joining in the coalition aggressively, or if they're vulturing. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's very obvious that if Zabalba were to join this coalition at all, like in any form, it would just be vulturing, right?
Right.
So from Mictlan's perspective, okay, I have one less neighbor to worry about. I can't defend the throne anyways. We give this to Zabalba. From Shabalba's perspective, great free stuff, right? Like they don't want to actually commit to fighting Mictlan. They'll take the free handout and keep the door open in case some miracle happens and Mictlan survives.
Right.
Then from Vettiheim's perspective, though, this is like a pretty significant part of their loot. Like Vettiheim gets a ton of value out of Earth magic. Like that's probably one of the biggest things that they could add. Right. And while the Silver Throne adds a little bit, the Iron Throne is much more reliable, and matrices are incredible. Right. So having that reliable Earth Astral is just so big, and like there's no reason that Shabalba should get that because Mictlan can't defend it regardless of who takes it.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, Vetti and Pan's naps end this turn, but they shouldn't seriously attack until next turn. From Mictlan's troops' disposition, it starts looking like I might be the one taking the main hit, which is not great because my tools to deal with Mictlan are probably the worst of all of us. We were just saying that's not what we thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still only have a single Earth 2 Yedoni.
Yeah, that's the unlucky part. Yeah. You kind of do want more Earth magic in order to more effectively buff your own guys and in order to Earth meld the Jaguars to minimize how much damage they're dealing.
Yeah. Also, I would be completely satisfied with just 5 provinces on my border, but it is what it is. Well, that's interesting. I mean...
Well, remember that he's going into this with the mindset of he knows that he's taking a very greedy build. And he also knows that with this drain thing where his research mages are not his combat mages, he's very vulnerable to being flanked, essentially. So he wants to always be able to control his wars. So his goal isn't to like snowball, get huge, start crushing people. His goal is to get to a decent size, take care of the most dangerous neighbors, and then just try to slowly build up, get his blood hunting going.
Well, the interesting thing to me about this is that it's almost like this might be terms which he could reach with Mictlan.
Yeah, it's very dangerous to do that, though, just because then you upset your coalition partners.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree, but yeah. I mean, it's really less a coalition and more a dogpile. I mean, there is you can call an attack on Mictlan a coalition because they do kind of need to be dealt with. But, I mean,
Yeah,
Poor
however you
poor
want to
Mictlan.
frame
I
it.
mean, like
Yeah.
if somebody's gonna get upset because the third party backs out of a 3v1 and the guy's down to like 4 provinces, it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I don't tend to like it when people that I'm working with make a deal to get out of a war, because that kind of shows that they're liable to do that in the future where it might actually be a bad idea, you know? Like
Yeah,
in this case it doesn't matter, but like if you are inclined to make that sort of trade, then you can kind of set yourself up to like
I think it
or
depends in a way. I think, but yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I kind of agree, but
yeah, like if Gap makes a deal with Mictlan of let me take these provinces and then you don't kill my units, then that kind of would rub me the wrong way, right? Like you're intentionally not pulling your own weight.
yeah, but he's still leaving it as a 2v1, and the guy has like, not a ton of provinces after he takes 5.
I think again
It
it's
would
more of a
rub me the
mindset
wrong
thing.
way
Like
too, but it's like,
yeah,
I think it depends. Like if it's position 1 Mictlan that you're having to like work together to team up and take down, like yeah, okay. Don't bail on us. But when it's just like, he gave me a deal too good to refuse, and y'all are still strong enough to kill him. It's like, okay. But anyway, let's keep reading. Research is alt for this turn, blood 3 after. That has the hunting engine. That, as the hunting engine, is really only heating up. Flaming arrows seem to not be effective against Mictlan to go for. Not effective enough against Mictlan to go for them instead. Not starting another fort yet because I'm using all my money, and 2 Amazon provinces are essentially fort recruitment wise. I plan/hope the next castle will be on top of one of the thrones. P.S. Zabalba's definitely a big worry because they have a busted hero that can make 4 Aussies a turn. Wait, what?
no, it's not 4.
How many is
It's
it?
it's 1 free Aussie a turn. Oh, I think they mean the summoning, that it can also summon them. So the
Oh,
book is making 1 and then it's summoning 3, and usually LA Shabalba actually has a really hard time with the Aussie summoning because you're kind of reliant on like
right,
either 10% random way of or empowering.
right. All right, so he's talking about empowering here. P.P.S. Naps with all neighbors except Mictlan and Pan. I'm still weak with my scales troops. I guess. Yeah, I mean, weak in quotation marks. Mary wanted a longer nap to feel safer, but I refused. Till next time. Ooh. Wait, Gath is which neighbor of Marignon? Oh, this
Uh,
neighbor.
yeah. Well, the thing is that Marignon should know that Gath is like somewhat occupied, but he also has like a little bit longer to get to that border because it's not strictly coastal. So
Right.
if he wants to go in on Atlantis, then the 3 turn cooldown wouldn't be enough time for him to get his troops back and defend. So he could lose that fort and then
Yeah.
also lose like another 3 provinces before he could get enough stuff to defend. And even then, he would literally be defending on his capital.
Gath doesn't have good air acts. Oh, they have Crystal Amazons, though. Okay.
Hmm.
And then how are they doing in research compared to Marignon?
They should be ahead at this. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they're ahead. And sloping up a bit above them.
Their
So,
so the, their slope is
yeah.
actually low, or it should be lower than most other people because they got their delta early because of those 3 sages per turn. But then they didn't accelerate beyond there because all of the mages that they're recruiting outside of their capital are really bad at researching.
Right. So I think this is an interesting matchup if it does ever come into play, because they both have access to air magic. They're similar research, so they can both do air offend. I think the thing is these slingers are probably, especially with flaming arrows, are going to wallop crossbows. So, yeah, I
It
don't
depends
know.
on how many he has left after the Mictlan War.
Right. And how much imp summoning Marignon can do. But okay, let's take a look and see what actually happened here. So Pan advanced here with this army. Let's take a look at it. This looks like
Yeah.
150 crossbows, about 60 of these dryads, maybe 70. No mage
You can just check
support.
the battle report. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I actually think that LA Pan is really good at early game is the magic stuff because they not only have the astral point buff stuff, they also have all the earth-wide area of effect buffs. So
Yeah.
they can they can do the Legions of Steel Strength of Giants and all the body ethereal nonsense.
But
And then
this is like your box standard greedy coalition push. Where like we can defeat him 3v1 without mobilizing our mage core.
it makes sense. The other nice thing about the Centaur Sages is that if you know that your opponent is using like a very specific army composition that lacks versatile mage support, like they're only doing buff casting, they're not on advancing cast,
Right.
you can often reasonably make Centaur Sage thugs
Right.
that you basically just custom kit to survive against whatever. Give them like the
Probably not
snake skin
Jaguars,
bladder.
though. Easily.
Probably not these Jaguars. Do
Yeah.
they have magic weapons?
They do. Yeah.
Yeah, then not these Jaguars. But there are LA army compositions, including like crossbow armies, where you can just stack 2 sages in a square and make them immune to the enemy army if
Yeah.
they don't bring mage support.
So this is
And the
interesting.
fun,
Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say the fun thing about that is it uses exactly the same research that you're using for all of your buff spells, anyways. Because
Right.
you already need Construction 3 for Legions of Steel, you already need Enchantment for Strength of Giants, and you already need the alteration buffs for your point buffing. So you don't need to shift your research at all, and you simultaneously get all these extra tools.
Pan also still gets pans, right? So they
And Dryads, yeah.
and dryads. So actually, this is, I feel like that, especially against stuff that where the astral is not going to be as useful. Like a pan dryad, you might be able to thug with that, stacking Physmos and stuff. But
Well, you don't get Moss Body.
oh, right, because these are the nature ones. But you can
Yeah.
get these. Oh no, they don't random water either. These aren't the same pans, right?
Pans don't random water in any era,
Oh, they don't.
but
Okay.
they're not the same pans as the other ones because they don't have a 100% random.
Right, that's what I thought. Yeah, the other. Okay.
Yeah, so
But
the
I guess
MA
it's
pans are
100%
bigger.
for this. Yeah.
Yeah, well, sort of. With MA pans, it's 100% Earth or Nature and a 10%.
Yeah, maybe
So-
you can't do it with this. This probably isn't. I mean, this probably is your best thug chassis, but
The Centaur Sages actually have really good stats.
yeah, 23, 27. Yeah. Yeah, who knows? Maybe it's, I don't even know.
The Keeper of Traditions is fun if you take a larger bless and then you use them as trampler guys, but that's kind of this weird expansion
Right.
thingy. It doesn't scale very well.
Yeah. And they fatigue out too, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened this turn was Pangea used their mercs to take this, and that's actually significant because
Because it's free.
it's free and Mictlan can't like PD dump or move into it. And this is actually kind of interesting because, like,
I think that's Gath Province, honestly.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it would be reasonable for Pan to expect to keep this. This is like one of the main spoils for Gath in this war. So he pings
The
this.
Mictlan can like counter raid that with like 3 guys.
Yeah, though, this province?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Gath might move there
Yeah,
too.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Is that like Gath moves in and then you kind of get like a little surprise round. Where like neither side knows exactly what's going to be moving into it.
Yeah, we don't know how many mages there are, but I think Mictlan probably, here's the problem, right? If you doom stack, especially if you doom stack and wait for them to come on your fort, like they might get cold feet. Like they're not gonna, like, okay, imagine you have 100 or 300 Jaguars here saying, hey, come fight me. Like this Gath army isn't gonna want to like come and go into like an obvious thing. They're gonna have to fight all your shit. So I just think Mictlan, it doesn't look like these armies have mage support. I think it's possible they can put together, it'll be tough, I'm not sure, but it's possible they might be able to put together 2 different stacks where if they mobilize all their mages, they might be able to have 2 stacks which could handily defeat these armies. And that would be doing like massive imp summoning in conjunction.
I think that what you do is the safe play for Mictlan, from my perspective, is that you try to intercept the Pangean army.
Yeah, which has 2 moves. Like
I think that you just deploy all of your sacreds and some degree of mage support to take the fight that you know that you can win.
Right.
And then that lets you see what Gath is doing, because you don't know what Gath's research is like. You don't know how many mages he's deployed. And trying to split up like that and bringing a bunch of mages can mean that you lose half of your sacreds and a significant number of your mages by trying to take this Gath fight when you don't know what's actually there. Whereas with Pangea, you do know what's there and you know that it's not that threatening.
Right. And there's 2 ways to do that. One is you move stuff to defend this, and then you patrol this, and you mobilize your mages. The other thing that you could do, and it probably depends on exactly what mages you have here and how many turkeys you could fly or what have you. But you move this army into here.
I don't think they win the bump.
Oh, if they move this way?
Yeah. I think that trying to fork the army like that is actually really dangerous against Pangea in particular, because Centaur Cataphracts and the Hoplites as well, actually, because they have awe, they have really high army value by like how Illwinter weighs these things.
Right.
So they're going to tend to win pushes.
No, but that's okay, right? Because you'd be saying that this whatever's in here with all the mages could beat this, right? And
Oh, I see what you're
you're
saying.
willing
Yeah.
to move into it. The risk would be that he PD dumps here, reinforces, and keeps everything still, which I think is a pretty
So
unlikely move.
So what I do here is Pangea, actually, because I'm in a coalition and because like in the situation I think it's fair to be risk averse, is you send raiding parties into both the forest and onto the fort so that you can see what actually is there.
Right.
And the amount of forces that Pangea needs to send to beat province defense is very small.
Yeah.
Like 6 Dryad Hoplites can beat PD, for example.
Right.
So you just send those really small forces to ping both of those provinces, and then you reinforce. And part of the reason that I think that Pangea is doing this is that you can see that he actually has guys, or his alien birds are a square behind.
Right.
So those were in flight range, I believe, of that, because they can fly over the water.
Right.
So I mean, I guess that he probably didn't have flying commander there. So that might be why it sat there. But like, that's in range, and it's not going to be on Mictlan's scout reports unless he has a scout specifically in that province. So
Yeah.
you basically are well situated to basically counter exactly the move that you're suggesting of moving into that army.
But that I think is what I like about this move of moving into the army. And I don't know how I think if you have 8 Blood 1 mages here, which is probably a little high, but I don't know, 6 and like 3 turkeys, if the turkeys have useful things, but maybe, I don't know exactly how many you would need. But if you could move enough stuff, and it's possible people from the capital can move here too if they have force survival. The mages, I don't think, can go that fast anyway. But if this army can take this, which I think there's a very good chance it can.
The Mictlan priest mages, assuming that's what you're talking about, those guys are fast. They have force
Okay.
survival and they're naked, and they're not old.
So if these guys and these guys could move here, and then these guys and these guys move here, and if you're pretty sure these guys plus these guys would kill this, then I think you take that move. There's a good chance, though, that these guys, if they move the whole army here, are going to push, and then you'll have the battle here, and then you just need to be confident that this army could kill this without these guys reinforcing. But
like I mentioned, my worry is that in Pangea's position there, I think that you like send the relatively small forces to hit the 2 Mictlan provinces that you border, and then you reinforce that province. So with that being the case, that's basically Mictlan sending, I'd say more than half, but like, a very significant portion of their force into Pangea's army, and then suddenly facing the same problem that they face with Gath, where they don't actually know what all is going to be there. Because if Pangea is going to be moving up mage support, that's where it's going to land.
Yeah, but it's also kind of like, another American Civil War analogy. The Union forces were moving in, bringing these huge fucking cannons, right? And you're just sitting there, and you can't just let people move everything in and get set up and PD dump with 3 people attacking you. You're right, it may not be ideal. You might get defeated in detail, but if somebody gives you the opportunity, which this is a huge fucking opportunity, this is a ton of non-mage supported troops, right? If somebody gives me the opportunity to kill it, I'm probably gonna swing. But it could be bait. They could move all the mages here, have all the shit point buffed, PD dump, reinforcements, and then this thing gets fucking trounced, and then you're out of the game.
I don't think Pangea is going to move all their mages up, but I do think that they're going to be reinforcing that.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, the movement of the birds there is kind of the giveaway that he's going to be reinforcing and not committing that army next turn.
Okay. Well, we'll see. And then Gath, you don't have any idea what they're going to do, so you probably just have to sit there and let them take something. I mean, you could also just move a bunch of stuff here and try to, the only thing the only predictable move is that this army's coming here. And it's a cave province, it's probably hard to get to.
I think they split up. I think that as Gath,
they go here and here. Yeah. But this is the only really predictable move that you have, but it's also not something Mictlan's positioned well to defend against. So,
and interestingly, like I mentioned, the farm is now blind to both of them.
Right.
So neither Gath nor Mictlan know what the other side is going to move into there.
Right.
But presumably Gath moves that reinforcing army that's just that one in 202. I think that army goes onto the farm.
Yeah. I mean, he may bring both, right? Because I'm sure
Yeah.
they know this is here. So,
Yeah, and Pangea has almost certainly shared the scouting report.
right. Though I don't. Oh, yeah, this probably is actually everything here. Because it's the scouting report here is 150. And I believe this was like 120 total units.
That's what's patrolling.
Yeah, but this is a lot of stuff. I think this is.
Yeah. It looks like he patrolled with one King of Rain just in case Pangea poked it.
Right.
Just because they know that Pangea has relatively deep raiding options as well as like stealth access. So between the two, like they had the slaves there that were already patrolling for the blood hunting, and they basically just decided, okay, we'll just add our Rain King in here.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Okay. Vettiheim
So that's
also
all the
hasn't
troops,
attacked
not
yet.
all the mages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vettiheim hasn't attacked. And I think that's it. Yeah, what are your closing thoughts on the Pangea bit? I mean, on the Mictlan bit.
So if you look at where Vettiheim's Jotuns are, those are the only non-stealth troops. So
These guys, yeah.
Yeah, so the Jotun Axemen kind of show you where his actual armies are. So he looks like he wants to come up through that throne, and that kind of makes sense that why he would be, quite upset about losing that Iron Throne, just because, again, it's such a huge deal for him to be able to take it. But that's also like kind of where he's putting most of his guys, because he's trusting Pangea to do most of the heavy lifting on the Eastern Front.
Yeah. Makes sense. Let's go ahead now, and we'll go to the TNG Agartha Midgard conflict now. Apparently, Province 113 has Veil of Infinite Horror, at least based on the unrest gain, misfortune scales, and the Khan that I recruited being quite horror marked. It's quite annoying as the province is quite high in population.
I think you called that earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
The funny thing about the Veil of Infinite Horror is it actually brings a bad thing when you discover it. So, like, unlike most sites where, like, oh, you know a site's there, you should go find it. With the Veil of Infinite Horror, you might not.
What happens when you find it again? I knew it can trigger bad events. I didn't know it was triggered on Discovery.
Oh, on Discovery, it causes a global and localized horror marking. So,
wow.
like, a bunch of stuff in the province globally get horror marked.
Okay. Message from TNG. That Midgard Agartha battle was super cool. I was surprised how few crossbows Agartha fielded, given his nation's advantages. It's 2/3 the number I have in my army. Though and Agartha's full scales too. Like, they should be able to have infinite crossbows almost. Though I've been quite lucky.
Spending a lot on those Cape Drakes.
That's true. Though I've been quite lucky with my cap circle forest able to make 11 crossbows a turn. Losing 2 turns of production to the Throne of Gaia, despite having a decent amount of PD, was certainly annoying. In any case, Agartha's army wipe means that the plundering of the Midgard capital falls to me. While it would have been nice to take my army to be ready to ride on the capital this turn, I chose to pull back last turn because Tess suggested that my army with 90 heavy cav, 90 crossbow, 5 spirit masters doing web could be wiped by 5 vans, about 80 Ein Hair, 11 Volva doing astral point buffing. I wonder what he was doing for the point buffing. I wonder if this was just luck.
Probably body ethereal.
Or body ethereal, because I don't think he has body ethereal.
Yeah, generally when people test, they go safe, right? So they'll do like a research level higher, exactly.
Right.
And we also know now that Midgard does not have 11 Volvas.
Oh, how many did they have?
Well, I mean, they had like...
It was just the remnants of that one battle?
They had like 5 or 6 in the last battle.
Right.
And they lost a couple, and then more of them retreated. So they don't have 11 Volvas in the capital.
Right.
They probably don't even have like 5.
Okay. Yeah, so there's when you're doing 11 instead of 5, and you're probably testing at Alt 4 instead of Alt 3, there's a lot of safety baked into that. Those things have just made them murder heavy cav. If Midgard decided to roll his capital army into me rather than Agartha, so we decided I should raid all the resources rather than doom stacking and research up to Sleep Cloud. It appears our estimate that only 5 vans exist was correct, but the 50 to 60 range for Ein Hair was high, and for Astral Mages a bit low, but plausible. He had 7 Volvas and 2 more A2s than we knew about. But I don't regret withdrawing. Oh, right. So that intel we were talking about, he didn't actually have when he made the decision. He was pulling back as Agartha was engaging. But I don't regret withdrawing, given that the plan had been for Agartha to take the capital. And if your early game strategy is to skip infrastructure and go conquer with a huge army, it's quite important to not get that army killed. Okay. Signed
On
him
the other
abs-
hand, it's also important to make up that infrastructure,
Yeah. Yeah.
which Midgard help a lot with.
Right. Though, I mean, this is going to work out
Yeah.
because
Now he's getting
Agartha
it.
wiped everything, failed to get the cap, and now he's going to get it probably easier than he would have.
Yeah, it worked out well. But as he pointed out, by withdrawing, he's going to be just one turn slower in actually taking it.
Right.
But yeah, still much better than needing to fight that army himself.
And he does have a nap with Pangea now, which is going to be a major neighbor with him taking a bunch of the Midgard stuff.
Yeah, they'll have like a 2-province border.
Yeah.
Oh, more if you count the water, but like
Right.
neither of them really move over it that easily.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see what happened. Ooh, Agartha raids here.
Oh, I'll get back to it later, but he found some very cool sites.
Oh, we'll definitely go look at that. Oh, who is this casting? Oh, it's Aldermen here fucking up these high protection cave drakes and lightning bolt.
Yeah, lightning bolt is one of the best things that you can use against these sorts of like elite high protection units. And even the cave drake form still gets stunned by them, even though it takes several casts to actually kill them.
I didn't even see it, but oh my gosh. Wait, let's watch this again because there was some. We were watching the front line, but there was some backline action too that we kind of missed. We had a a Galderman thug.
Oh, we actually had talked about this. That this is very disappointing to see, not because it's bad, but because this should have been with his main army.
Right.
Not necessarily a Galderman thug even. Like the lightning whip is much better on a Vanhurst.
Right. Yeah, because this guy can shock himself, right? Yeah. You usually don't want to put this on guys that don't have a lot of shock resistance.
Not only can he shock himself, he also has 9 attack.
Right. Oh, and does this have to hit? No, I think this happens even if you don't hit. Yeah. It says extra effect, which means you don't have to hit.
Okay, yeah.
But
so it's like
I think it still does some. I forget there's a thing check real quick.
But it does also have a very high length.
So on a unit that's capped. Oh yeah, it's capped at 1. So this doesn't actually do. The 12 doesn't do much.
But the interesting thing about that weapon, or part of why it's so useful as a thug weapon, is it also is actually really good at repelling.
Yeah.
So on a Galderman with 9 attack, that doesn't really do much, whereas on Van Jarl, it actually does.
Right. That's a good point. Now, what's also interesting here is while this was a raiding party, it wasn't exactly that cheap because these cave drakes are actually really expensive. So this is, I mean, almost like what, $500 worth of cave drakes?
It's more than that, actually. If you count them as 80 apiece, and admittedly, the cave drake form is a little less good, right? Those are the ones you have left over. But that's 640 gold and 180 from the crossbow. So like, it's like, what is that?
I mean, it's like
180 plus 640. 800. It's
yeah,
over
$800.
Yeah.
And we're at the stage in the game where this is like almost a turn of stuff. You know, like this isn't trivial exactly, especially on the back of all the attrition he just suffered.
It's a fort, yeah.
Yeah. So, and he cut off the. Oh no, there's a retreat route here. So some of the crossbow might have survived, but these guys are going to have a hard time getting out.
But there is also the fact that Midgard didn't have that gear to actually win the fight against Agartha previously.
Okay, so last turn, Agartha and Midgard fought. Agartha barely won, right? Or no, wait, who barely won? It was a
Agartha barely won.
Both sides basically died, but I think Agartha barely won. Well, Midgard says, "All right, fuck it, gather the troops. We're charging back in." And Agartha says, "Fuck it, you're not taking this from us now that we, fought so hard to take it." And we have round 2. I believe this is the exact same province.
Yeah, I think part of that is Agarthan units that were already in that province, though. And you can also see that he did invest in PD. This is the heavy cavalry PD. Which is probably partly why Midgard decided to fight there. Because like if you have a good province defense that you can deploy, you may as well use it.
Well, wait, who has the PD?
Gartha, this is Agartha's PD now. I mean, last turn when Midgard fought there, probably part of the reason why they selected that province is that it has a really strong PD type.
Right.
Because Midgard's natural province defense, like their native stuff, is really bad.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
Does he have gear?
There's actually kind of, Oh, wait, what's that?
Does he have gear on his horsey boys?
Yeah, let's take a look at the commander
The
crew
van
here.
horses.
So we've got
Okay, he
Thunder Whip
does.
guy. Now these guys are going to be a lot better with like the
Did
vans
he
around them that have shock
did he just
resistance.
not have them last turn?
I'm not totally sure.
That would explain it if he did all the forging this turn.
Well, no, there was definitely one guy that could have been there because it was that Galderman thug. Yeah, that Thunder Whip's doing some work. Now the Thunder Whip will cause friendly fire. I'm not seeing a ton of it.
Well, yeah, you can see it's bouncing on the Drakes. Yeah, because he's hitting like the third Drake in line. So
Right.
it's mostly bouncing on the Agarthan units, and when it does bounce back, it's hitting only the shock-resistant Sacreds.
Which is kind of a little lucky. I mean, he probably does intentionally have the horses with those guys, but...
Yeah, it's more of a positioning thing than a luck thing.
Yeah.
Because he's flanking with this, right? So, like,
Right.
it's just his Sacred Cavalry and this thug hitting that flank.
Yeah. Well, there were some Einherr kind of nearby. But look at this.
Yeah.
He loses 2 Vola. He loses 9 Einherr. And that's about it. And he kills... this is all Agartha has left in the world.
12 Cave Knights. That's 1,000 gold.
And another 6 Cave Drakes.
Yeah. That was actually a very significant Agarthan force.
Right. Without
Curious-
mage support,
oh.
I'll point out, there's not a single mage here.
I think that he thought that Midgard was not going to fight that. That's the
I
only
mean,
reason.
clearly, right? Because he didn't even PD dump.
Yeah, that's just 10 PD, yeah.
Yeah. He's just like, we're just going to sit here. And they'll maybe do like a small raid, and this force will kill a small raid.
I think he's moving that in part because he already had guys stuck in the province.
Yeah. Well, Midgard has clearly demonstrated that he would not have lost a 1v1 to Agartha. I think
that's fair, yeah.
I am fully satisfied with
He
that.
might have still lost a 1v1 to TNG.
Right.
But he is beating Agartha, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing there in that, if you look at what Agartha's bringing up, though, is he's starting to use the Sappers, which are very unusual units. They're one of the only recruitable AoE weapon units.
Right. 1 ammunition.
Yeah, very low ammunition, to be fair. They're very good at siege. That's usually why you buy these guys. But they're also kind of also specialists for if you have like arrow fended or
Right.
like otherwise like range immune units and you still want to like clear them out. They have this like kind of little niche for that, but they're very expensive.
Right.
Like 20 gold each for human stats with no shields. So they're very vulnerable to enemy crossbows, which
Yeah.
usually makes them like not really worth using outside of the siege strength in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And admittedly, the siege strength is great, but like it's also very easy to get siege strength in LA because you can just get like 7 gold militia or whatever to fill that same role.
They also, I believe, are the hardest hitting unit on the Agarthan roster. Like this pickaxe, shit attack, right? And it's not a very robust unit. But if somebody's planning on like having a prot tank thug, this is your best guy to take them out.
I think you just use like sepulcrals or penumbrals or some other summon.
Right. I'm on the
Odds for that
recruitable
role.
roster. I mean, you could also make thugs to kill it, but like they do hit exceptionally hard. 21 two-handed piercing is a lot.
Yeah, I just wouldn't ever want to endorse them for that role. Because as you pointed out, 8 attack.
Yeah, no, that you don't really want them tied up in melee, but they do. I mean, we're talking about it's a weird unit, right? He does.
You
I mean,
generally
it
just
hits
buy them-
really fucking hard.
You generally just buy them for the siege strength.
Right.
bonus.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then occasionally the niche AoE thing.
Right. Cool. So, yeah,
But that shows that he's very overconfident.
yeah. This is like we need siege stuff, and Midgard's like, you need fucking mages, dude. You're not gonna come kill me with this army of troops. Get out of here.
But on the other hand, that's 2 fewer Volvas, so like now it's even easier for TNG.
Yeah. I love that Midgard did this, though. I mean, the Midgard position, I think, once he lost this force on top of this fort, like he was kind of all in here. I don't think it was winnable in a 2v1 after that. But I love that he took this fight. He's like, fuck it, we're going to fight, which is what you want to do. I mean, I think now Agartha is food. And Utgard has moved a shit ton of stuff up to this border. And I'm highly... I mean, the chances of this battle report not making its way to Utgard, very low. Probably all of the neighbors are going to see that battle report.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, we know that Pythium and Atlantis are busy, to be fair. so they're
Right.
not getting involved. But Marignon is in sailing range.
Right.
Marignon could sail into 3 provinces if he so chose.
Yeah, this actually would be an awesome Marignon war because he's kind of a free agent. He's probably not positioned to get a ton out of this stuff with Atlantis, but he could get a fort out of this war with Agartha and 2 farms. Like even if this is his only spoils, Agartha doesn't actually have anything to say to him right now. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, that said, we know from the diplomacy of what Erythia had shared that Marignon is going in on Atlantis.
Right.
And then the upside of that Atlantis war, from Marignon's perspective, is there's really no blowback, right? Like, you get some
Right.
free stuff, and you don't have to worry about actually fighting someone.
But I mean, Marignon's commitment to the Atlantis war, I expect, is going to be very thin. Right? They don't have any forts they're going to get to take. Somebody else is going to get Atlantis's capital. They get like a throne and maybe 3 provinces total.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
They're totally
I
a free agent, is what I'm saying. And
yeah, they could swing onto Agartha after grabbing those.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, Agartha's kind of boned. I think if Utgard and Marignon attack Agartha now, I think they're just out of the game. Pretty much. If Utgard just attacks them, they have a shot at still defending. But
I actually think Utgard is very heavily favored into Agartha as like a national matchup.
Yeah.
I think that this particular Utgard's position is a little bit weak, so he might not be able to capitalize on it as heavily. But once it comes down to actual like armies with mages versus armies with mages, I would favor Utgard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. So anyway, we're looking like we're going to get action. I mean, Utgard's got everything he's ever made in the whole world on this border. And it looks like even his mage corps is mobilized. And there's literally 8 and 4 guys in these forts. Like, there's no mages here.
But look at the 2 barbarian provinces.
Oh, fuck.
Poor guys.
They almost got Agartha's, like, hero.
Yeah, luckily he did actually script it to retreat.
Oh, what a smart man. What a cool hero.
Yeah, he's interesting. He does have insane, though, so he's a little harder to use.
Yeah. Did he? Oh, it looks like he retreated here, so that's nice. Oh, wait, weren't you saying back with TNG we had, because we're about done with this, wasn't there some site we needed to look at?
So next to let me find the actual number here. It's in the Swamp 101. Marble Mausoleum. That's a conjuration bonus site.
Very nice. Does TNG have any spell? Yeah, they have conjuration spells. In late age, they don't get a lot of the good summons that they get in other ages, right? Like in early age especially. But I think they still get the dogs. Who else do they get? They might still get the celestial soldiers, right?
I believe so. I think that those are all eras, but let me double check.
Okay. But I mean, 20% conjuration bonus can be pretty nice because it can round up to like 20 or 30 or, depending on the gym cost. It might be effectively 30.
Celestial stuff.
Okay.
Well,
that's awesome.
Most of the cool stuff that they get is the in-battle stuff. Like, they still get Celestial Chastisement for bonking magic units, so like they're really good against golems. They get Wrath of the Ancestors for lots of spooky ghosts. But yeah, their national summons aren't super impressive. Depending on your bless, like if you're doing like an MATNG bless rush build, Celestial Soldiers are amazing just because they already have high attack and defense.
Right.
So like their stats just translate really well. But for this particular bless, I don't think that it's more about the national stuff so much as it is about like Lamia Queens and
they get
Targaryens.
Couple concentration commanders too. They get the Huiling, I think, or something. It's the raccoon.
That's Joman.
Is that Joman? Wait, they get something. Yeah. Wait, they get a Wheeling, isn't it? No?
MATNG gets that.
Okay.
I don't think LA does.
LA doesn't.
Let me double check. Yeah, that's only EA and MA.
So yeah, I mean, TNG has to decide now, do they want to fight this? There's probably only, because they lost 2 Volvas here, there's probably 5, and then maybe there's 2 more, so there could be 7.
Yeah.
Plus all this.
I think TNG takes that.
Yeah.
That's very winnable. I mean, without how many Einheirs died, like if you're going to ever fight Midgard, you want to do it now.
Yeah.
No, I mean, including last turn.
Oh, gosh. I don't know. A lot of Einheirs died last turn.
Yeah.
It's 2 Galdermen.
So Midgard is basically as weak now as they're ever going to be. So unless you're like going to completely back off and try to make peace or whatever, you want to fight them now because waiting is just going to make it harder.
Yeah.
And this should also be very winnable, right? Like Sigurd's army has been attrition down to the point where it should stand no chance against that TNG distance.
Right. It's kind of the thing too with ranged stuff. Like you're just gonna lose so much stuff on the approach that once you get under a critical mass, you really don't have anything to say. So anyway, that's that. Let's. Who do you want to look at next? Maybe we look at the Atlantis situation.
Yeah, I mean, Earthia is admittedly one of my favorite nations in LA, so always happy to talk about them. And they seem to be doing very well with some compy little rating there. This is a very low commitment force, though.
Right. And I had said patrol this with water elementals, like even the baby ones. They would have won this.
What I'm more worried about is their lack of mage support in their main army. Like Earthia should be the ones.
Can't see yet, right? Have we been able to see it? I know we peeked ahead.
Oh, yeah, that might be privileged information then.
Yeah.
But we did peek ahead. Well, okay, so if you look at their forts, you can sort of deduce this by the fact that they've got all their data joes still sitting at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, from our peeking ahead information, I guess, because we don't have the numbers here, Erythia does not have enough mage support in that army to actually make a capital push, or at least not to make one that's safe. So they're in a great position right now with their small commitment. Like in terms of like land that they've taken, they've basically taken all of this for free. Like Atlantis has not hit them back.
And they have the means to. They have a Ghost King who I believe has finally made it to the capital. So, but yeah, I mean, Atlantis has been playing very passive for having basically an awake Titan.
Well, it's scary. Like they can't hit Pythium with that because they know it's going to die. Right. And until they see how many mages Erythia has deployed, they can't set it there either because it might just get a solar raised to death.
Yeah. I'm kind of the opinion though that if that's like your tool, I mean, I would test it, right? And I would come up with what I thought was the best kit and I'd try to make it win. And to do that, you do have to ping the army, which he should have done this turn. But like,
no, I agree.
I'm going to roll the dice. You know, I'm not going to sit here in my capital.
I would definitely try it out is the thing. Yeah. But you can't take it blind. But I do agree that Atlantis kind of messed up by not pinging that army this turn. Because until they see what Erythia is actually deploying against them, you can't know whether or not you're going to be able to take that fight and how you should be setting it up. So they basically starved themselves of information that they should have been able to get for free.
And I think what I had suggested last turn, and maybe we did see there weren't a lot of mages in it, is I think the god was here. I think I was saying, like, move the god here, fight the Erythia army with the god. I think we did see it last turn. So yeah, I think I was saying fight the god here, do water elementals here. I forget what I said to do with this army, but
well, that army just sailed back up. Actually, that had been on the
right here,
mountain.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, he's got this. It's a kind of weird thing because he's got his army on like counter raiding duty, which is kind of weird, especially this big. You know.
Yeah, and then the other thing is Pythium. After the losses that they took, basically putting that fort under siege, they didn't feel comfortable, so they wanted to remass and bring in more mages. I'm thinking just because the mages weren't in range, which is something that we'd kind of talked about actually last one, because I thought, oh yeah, obviously Pythium can reinforce, but no, they can't.
Right.
The mages don't have swamp survival. Yeah, so he pulled back in order to actually get those mage reinforcements in there. And you can see he brought some Hydra hatchlings too, so, you know, those are fun. But Atlantis didn't try to shove that army back off.
Right.
So Pythium basically just got free, a free turn locking down that fort, and even a free turn raiding, because he was able to take that forest just to the south.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to see some cool stuff from Atlantis, but right now he's not doing much in terms of playing a hand. Like there were reasonably predictable moves, like this army was going to attack here. This wasn't super predictable, but
yeah, I actually have to give some props to Pythium in terms of just his like tactical maneuvering, like of how he's moving his like little squads around. He's been doing a great job taking and holding ground.
Yeah. I mean, he's doing all sorts of nice little budget raiding, and he's very cautious about where he's going to commit his doom stack. I like that he pulled back here. He might have also run out of gems. We don't know that either. So
no, he had gems because the only gem spell he's casting is Foul Vapors. His poison buff spell doesn't require gems.
Oh, and he had enough for another casting?
Yeah.
Okay. So Yeah, I
He
guess if
just
the Ghost
lost
King casts, you kill him. But if the Ghost King does attack, you don't want to foul vapors yourself.
Well, the bigger issue was just that he'd lost enough of his actual soldiers
Right,
that the maid support that he had wouldn't have been enough to carry the fight.
right. But with this army was down here, so he wasn't going to have to fight an army. It would have just been the troops.
I think
I mean,
Atlantis actually,
Oh, did they have
yeah,
something? Okay.
it
Okay.
was at least enough that it would have been a risk. Because
Okay.
Atlantis consolidated onto that coastal province this turn.
Yeah. All right, so I think that's it for these guys.
Yeah, there's not much happening in this war other than me being a little disappointed at Erythia and impressed at Pythium's tactical movement.
Okay. Let's move over to Zabalba and Joman.
Look at Arco sitting in that pond. They actually kept their army there.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Are they like thinking about keeping attacking?
I mean,
They must be. Like why else are you there?
previously we saw the Ghost King, I believe, get deployed.
Mm-hmm.
But the Ghost King was here, right?
Yeah.
Well, where is it now?
I honestly expected Joman to move the Ghost King underwater, but it looks like Joman is going for like a whole like death stack consolidation.
39 PD.
Yeah, so he clearly expected Xibalba to all in on that specific province.
Expected or hoped. I'm not sure which one. It's not like a predictable move.
It would be an unusual move, but it was within range of the skeletons. So because the skeletons can't or the long dead, I should say, can't regular phase move onto the capital, you oftentimes do want to bring stuff in in a relatively direct route. That said, I don't really see what he's doing there because he doesn't have maid support other than the Ghost King. And the Ghost King doesn't exactly synergize well with his troops. I think that Ghost King works much better as a free agent, especially if he moved it into that water province.
Yeah, let's take a look. Because the Ghost King, if it has really killy, in general, if you have an army thug, you want them to be very killy.
This is not an...
Oh, this is for personal region.
Yeah, but this isn't an in-army thug.
Yeah, this is not. So...
This is a guy who I think works much better as an independent operator.
Okay. He's actually freezing guys in the army with this.
Well, it's Heat 3. So his Cold War is at least going to be relatively minor in terms of how much damage it causes. Yeah. I did see that one guy turned blue, but the amount of damage that he's going to cause here isn't that bad.
The only thing I could maybe see is if you have him tough enough to tank an Aussie or two and some other guys, you could back position him to catch attack rear guys. That's the only thing I can kind of think of. You put him in some role where his whole job is just to tie up killy guys while your army does stuff. But in general, I don't like having him here.
But we actually talked about this in that Joman had mentioned in a message that he had tested this guy against Aussies.
Right.
And he dies, apparently. So
there's a difference between he may die, but if he's completely surrounded by Aussies, but it might be he can still be a distraction at the back of the army for a long ass time. He might not catch as much heat, or he might die slowly, which is fine.
Yeah, if he has dudes sharing his square and stuff, that makes sense.
Yeah. I was just trying to think how it might be, but this is what I hate about. I mean, I PD dump. I love a good PD dump, but the downside of it, which I feel often because I tend to PD dump every once in a while, is now it's you want to defend this, and that fucking sucks. Because now you have one army, and you're I have to defend the 39 PD, but then you can't really, so you'll go somewhere else, and then eventually they'll kill it.
I mean, to be fair, Xibalba is not great against large province defense dumps unless they can very reliably kill the commanders.
Right.
And even then, they tend to take losses on the retreating units.
Yeah.
So, all you need to really defend that province against Xibalba is, one commander set to attack so that he joins the rest of the guys. And then Xibalba needs to actually be able to kill all those guys.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair point. But Zabalba's being very cautious here. I'm really surprised. I really expected him to take some shot at the capital, but they really haven't.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I expected a headshot at some point, and it's not coming.
Right. Okay, so we've covered this conflict now. Let's come down to Ulm and Arco. Is this? Oh my goodness.
Oh, this is the battle. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, we kind of see by the fact that Arco is still sieging the province that Arco has won, and this is very
All right,
much
sorry.
in line
Some
with our
people might
expectations.
not have seen. So if I click
All
on
right.
something quickly, you have to assume somebody was sitting there like not paying attention. At least half the people.
Okay. Yeah.
So we don't know
Uh,
who wins, but there may be an Arco army on top of the fort after this.
yeah, but like this is kind of what we had been talking about of like Arco very much has the advantage in this like army v army fight. And he even actually did some nice positioning with the
Yeah.
forward deployed crossbow catchers.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
you can see you see the heart companions in solo square blocks.
Mhm.
Those guys are 100% reliably going to get all the point buffs because they're going to be the highest HP density units around. So he's making sure that his most elite units are getting ethereal and his elephants are getting ethereals because you can see they also have dedicated mystics.
Right. And yeah, I mean, he only has a little bit of what you'd actually call chaff, which are these guys who are not going to be getting buff priority. And he brought a lot of mages. I mean, we have what, 2 mystics here. We've got a decent number of these guys who are going to be these mystics who are going to be spamming these Orphic mystics who are going to be spamming most likely protection.
Yeah, but the reason that you bring the Orphic Mystics is actually for the advance and cast value from the Death guys, because those counter Ghoul Guardians. So
Right.
that's why they're really with this army. The actual
Well, we
like
haven't
protection
seen a
help.
Ghoul Guardian yet, have we? Are there?
No, not at all. But I like the reason that you want to bring them with your army is basically to enable that option.
Okay.
Because Ghoul Guardians are
they're still valuable as protection casters, right? Like,
yeah, protection's okay. I was more just saying that like one of the few things that Ulm can do that's going to be cost effective against this force that Arco has deployed are those Ghoul Guardians.
Right.
And the Death Random Orphic Mystics are basically a hard counter to that.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm just adding to. I do think getting
even the protection
on
value
these guys is really high value. Like it's not something to scoff at. And one of the things because they're a spell singer, they are decent skelly spammers too. Like surprisingly not horrible if there's no Ghoul Guardians to dust.
Oh, sorry, I said death random. They all do have death magic.
Yeah, I think the death randoms can be. I think there are death randoms, right? Like, and they can be death too, I believe.
Yes, they have a 50% chance to roll one of the sorcery paths.
Right.
So they can get death too. Yeah. The Pangeas are random between nature and death. Yeah.
Right.
But anyways, the reason that Arco brought these guys with his army is to basically counter Ulm's most effective unit.
Right.
They also do cast good buffs, as you pointed out. Yeah. So like they're valuable in either case.
On Ulm's side, we have what looks to be close to 200 crossbows, maybe 150. We've got maybe 25 something pikemen who are kind of garbage.
Those are leftovers from his expansion party.
Right.
I believe. Oh no, he actually did recruit more. That's surprising. Because like I looked at the first one and I saw that it was like, oh, lots of experience, lots of injuries. Like these are just the starting army guys, no problem. But he actually bought more of them.
Yeah, I can understand it because they're not going to get repelled, right? So if you want to engage these guys in melee, which in my opinion you really don't fucking want to do, like it's kind of a losing scenario if you're going to try to kill these in melee.
Yeah, but I think you just want more rangers.
And then they got this is a heavy crossbow merc. And they've got what looks to be about like 10 of these black priests.
Huh.
Which
I wonder what they can do. So Earth Meld, that's going to be useful.
The Earth randoms maybe like Legions of Steel, Strength of Giants stuff, but that's not going to be super high value in this fight. But obviously, Force Strength is nice.
Do you think he has Iron Darts? That's the only thing I could think of that would get him to deploy all these guys.
Yeah, I think that's what it probably is. Yeah. I don't love Iron Darts as a spell. I'm just going to put that out there. Iron Blizzard I like a lot. Iron Darts, it's not that much. It's like...
So, Iron Darts in the late game is very good for sniping magic beings because it has longer range. But that's kind of a niche use case. In the early game, you're mostly just using it to be like, this guy is 8 crossbows. But, I mean, they're also magic crossbows.
Is it worth 8 crossbows? It's 3 bolts. Right? Maybe it's a slightly higher damage, but they fatigue out, too.
That's true. Yeah, but crossbows also only fire once every other round. I'd call them 8 crossbows.
Okay, so we've got some thugs back here, too. That's the other kind of thing here. We've got... Okay, this guy looks to be doing some point buffing. And some point buffing here. So I'm expecting maybe Cheat Fate at a minimum. Maybe some luck cast on these guys.
Does he have gear? Oh, he does have.
Well, this one does
Oh,
dual dusk daggers, which
what's the heroic trait?
I think this is the quickness one.
Quickness. Okay.
Yeah, I mean this is a fucking solid hawk.
Okay. I
Yeah,
hope that guy. Yeah, I mean, he really has to hope that guy survives. But yeah,
this guy's got unequaled obesity. You probably want to put him in the same tile with this guy to attract more buffs. But
oh, true. Yeah, he might have messed that up, but we'll see once the buffs start rolling.
all right, here we go. I'm gonna actually restart the battle. We're gonna watch each side buff up for the first couple turns, and then we'll see how the battle plays out.
Let's see
Iron
which
Darts
square.
here and Divine Blessing.
Okay.
And
Okay,
then
so he
back
is doing
here,
Iron Darts.
Yeah, we have Luck getting cast. So Luck got cast twice, so it probably hit. Oh, weirdly, it didn't target that tile yet.
Well, luck isn't
Oh,
HP prioritized.
That's right. So yeah, these guys are just spamming Luck, so they're gonna get everybody. Let's see if they do Cheat Fate too, because Cheat Fate actually would be pretty sick on these guys.
Oh.
No.
People don't love that spell enough.
Yeah, it's a good spell. All right.
Okay, so he's got 4 ethereal elephants, the ethereal heart companions.
It's more. There's 5 ethereal elephants.
Well, yeah, I
All
have
but
4,
one.
yeah, I saw 4 on the front. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so total 5, and then he's got the square of ethereal heart companions, and then the ones up top should also be
These are
ethereal.
all ethereal. Look at these. Except, like, these are like 80% ethereal, and are they lucky too?
The top ones are lucky,
Right.
but I don't think they're. No,
He doesn't have many that.
Okay.
I don't think any got luck and ethereal.
So that's interesting. Okay.
It's almost
So
like the AI intentionally didn't put them on the same units.
If you look further up and to the right, there are lucky ethereal guys.
Oh, where?
Front there.
These guys?
Further up and to the right.
Further up and to the right.
Yeah. If you look at the front there, those lucky guys, I think.
No.
Oh nope, they're not ethereal. Okay.
Yeah, we literally
Okay.
have avoided giving anybody luck in ethereal.
Huh. So I had thought that because he'd like very specifically placed those like heart companions in their own square, that those were the guys that were going to get buffs stacked on them. But it didn't happen though. I guess it's because luck's longer range.
What we also see is most of these guys got painted with protection. And that has their protection up at a whopping 24, which is really fucking high. And with this
that's
Hoplon,
borderline crossbow immunity.
Yeah, these guys are like thug level territory for dying to crossbows. Like they're gonna be, each one that gets brought down by crossbows is gonna be an event. The Iron Darts seem to be focusing these elephants.
Which is good. That's kind of what you want them for.
Yeah, these are all Iron Darts coming, and they're doing a fair amount of damage. Like these, by the time these guys close, this guy's almost dead. This guy's 49 HP.
Once they do close, they're just gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, they're size 6 tramplers.
Okay, one of them's gone down.
Okay,
this
so
guy
he
got
killed 2 of them.
webbed.
Yeah, he killed 2 of them actually. Okay, so the Iron Darts are actually pretty effective against these elephants, and because the elephants have the highest HP, they're pretty reliably going to be targeted. But now we're seeing the actual heart companions get into the combat, and those guys are going to be much, much harder to take down.
And these guys have switched to casting Holy Word. Which
I think that's because of fatigue.
I think so too. I think it's a low fatigue spell, and I think the casting AI has decided to prioritize that because they're fatigued out. But I'm not sure. It would have been nice. I mean, I don't think Ulm had it, right? But if they had Conjuration 3 to put Summon Earth Power on these guys.
Yeah, that would have been a huge help. And like, just distributing Earth Gems for Earth Melt would have also been good. Because now these Heart Companions are in the mix, and there are no counters to them in Ulm right now. Like he can't kill these things. They're taking like 3 damage at a time.
Yeah.
It's that.
And they're just...
And Holy Word's not doing anything.
They're barely even stopping to kill things. They're just charging straight through these Ulmish crossbows.
Yeah, I mean, Rangers are not, like, tanky units.
Oh, God.
And they're not going to be able to...
Not the Mage Core.
Yeah, these guys are exhausted.
No.
Does Argo have magic weapons in his Bless?
I thought he did. Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does. Okay.
And, I mean, here we can see the scariness of this Bless. You know, it's not like a Repel build, but it has bonus strength, a decent amount of Undying, and a bunch of resistances. Once you get Bark Skin and then some Astral buffs on them, these things are fucking monsters. They're just really hard to kill.
Do those mages have Iron Skin on them or something? Because they're surviving. Oh, yeah, they do.
Oh, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, so on the other hand, you are also seeing that they're not that great offensively. So if they were to run into, say, Pangea, with Bark Skin buffed Centaur Cataphracts, or, Lucky Bark Skin Centaur Cataphracts, that sort of thing, then they're probably just going to get stalled out. But against Ulm in particular, because Ulm has no durable units outside of his thugs, he just can't deal with these sacreds.
I mean, Ohm could have made, Ghoul Guardians like we talked about, which would have been good in this matchup. But,
But no, they
there's
wouldn't, because
Y-handers
the
would
Death
have
Mages
still
are
been.
there.
Right, yeah. But I meant in the troop matchup.
Oh, yeah.
But the Y-handers still wouldn't be able to
hang on.
engage.
Arco's mages are not advancing.
Yeah, I think he just brought him for the point buffs. I don't think he brought him for Ghoul Guardians.
Huh. So to me, that's why you bring the Death Mages, right? Like,
Yeah.
you counter the only thing that... I guess on the other hand, he did see Ulm's army, so he knew the Ghoul Guardians weren't there.
Right.
Yeah, so those black...
And, I mean, he got a ton of value out of the protection casts. But, yeah, he should have had him on advancing cast, too, so...
Yeah, so the Black Priests did actually deal with the elephants fairly well. But he just had nothing to deal with the actual sacreds. And there were 53 of them.
I mean, yes, they
and he
did
lost
help,
Adam.
but these were evocation mages that got one kill.
Oh.
I don't
Wait,
need to
so
say much more than
what-
that.
So I thought that they were the ones doing most of the killing on the elephants.
They softened up the elephants, especially the first ones that got in.
I guess the Rangers got all the kills.
Yeah. You know who got a lot of kills? We should watch this battle again, but just from the perspective of the Hawkmeister. He got as many kills, I think it's this quickness guy, as the rest of the army put together. Now, he needed the rest of the army as cover. Let's find this guy. I hope he has a name.
He's probably the one who's holding... Yeah, so he's going in later.
Okay, he's
Yeah.
going in late. Oh, right, because he's quickened. They don't want him to, like...
Charge
Okay.
in ahead. Okay, so he goes through the main line while the other Hawkmeisters flank, and the flanking Hawkmeisters got wrecked by an elephant.
Deletes one elephant. It deletes another elephant.
Okay, so that's who got the kill credit on those
Yeah.
elephants. Interesting.
Yeah, this is one of the things Arco, the player, pointed out to me. He's like, check out the quickness hawk in that battle. He gets more kills than the rest of the army put together. I think it's this guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's the one who got all the elephant kills. But on the other hand, those did get whittled down quite a bit by the Iron Darts.
Yeah. Does he escape? Will we get to see this guy fight again? Oh, no.
Oh,
He's not going to be able to fight his way through all
cornered.
those guys, will he?
Well, maybe he will.
Oh!
Yeah. Well, because think about it. He's got dual dust daggers. He's like
Yeah.
the only person on the field who can handle those sacreds.
Right. Well, that's the silver lining to this whole goddamn thing, is that one
This one very
Hawkmeister,
cool.
he gets to fight again. I mean, I wonder if there were a way that guy could tank, like face tank all of this. Probably not.
No, I mean, even if the Mystics are just set to advance and cast, then like,
Yeah.
Starfires will kill this guy.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they do have regen, right? But you're right. Okay, so the Butcher's Ledger, 150 Rangers of Ulm, 2/3 of them died. The Mercs are dead. The Pikeneers are dead. Most of the Hawkmeisters are dead. Sadly, the Black Priests are almost all dead.
Yeah, that really kills Ulm's chances of actually developing a counter.
Right.
And this actually kind of goes back to the same thing that Midgard did, where his army could not beat the army that was sieging him, but he still took the all-in fight.
Right.
I
And
think that's just a failure
I
in
think this was
testing.
kind of advertised too. Like we got to see this Arco army.
Mhm. Yeah, no, Ulm knew exactly what was there.
Right.
He opted into this fight, and like in this situation where you know what the army's going to be, you should at least test it.
Right. For a first war, later in the game, once things are more stressed, I wouldn't ever test this really. But I would have, by that time in the game, I'd also have pretty good intuition for how the matchup's going to play out. But for a first war
fair.
all-in situation, like I'm going to test it. I'm going to get exactly this many mages. I'm going to script it the same way he will, and I'm going to see what happens. And that's the real danger and terror of attacking into like a good player, especially one that's going to test. Is like, if there's a way to kill it, they're going to figure it out. but
Yeah,
there's no
so
way to
I
do
gotta
it with
mention,
this army, I don't think.
the other thing is I think both of us called that this war was very Arco favored.
Yeah.
Like I think just like when we looked at the blesses and like the heart companions and like Arco the player had like kind of been laughing about this of like, oh, Olm's picking a war with me. It kind of reminds me of the JoJo meme. Oh, you're approaching me?
Yeah.
Like this war was like this is basically the worst neighbor that Olm could have picked to fight. And we know why he did it, right? Like it came down to diplomacy. But like
What's
there's no.
actually interesting here too, I want to comment on is like I wonder how we have this army scripted. I wonder if it was on fire closest or fire random. Because look at these guys. Look at this archer squad. These guys were like on. These guys are on Holden fire, right? These guys are on fire, but for targeting, these guys look like they're on fire closest or something, or for whatever reason they target these guys. But these guys are going to target these elephants who are all the way back positioned.
Oh, they're actually yeah. So they're doing max damage. If you do unscripted fire,
Right.
they try to deal as much damage as possible, which is usually what you want to do with forward deployed crossbows because they're actually very likely to target
The
mage
mages,
square.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I was going is if these guys weren't on Holden fire, if they were just on fire random or like fire none, there's a decent chance like this bait squad actually did a lot of work because one of the problems with like a point buff strategy like Arco has is these first couple turns when they're doing all the point buffing, you don't want your mages to get plinked down. And nothing came back here at the core of the mage crew, even though I think they could have been targeted.
So the reason that that happens is basically due to like basically the precision math
Right.
of like if you guys are sufficiently further back than the rest of your army,
Right.
then they're not going to get preferentially targeted, especially when they already have these elephants, which aren't like
Right.
crazy durable and which do have very high hit points.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I more crossbows might have worked, especially with like minor scripting changes, but probably also
Yeah, like
needed Ghoul
200
Guardians.
more crossbows.
Yeah. It's kind of a thing where like we're describing stuff that like, oh, he might have been able to win, but really it comes down to the build. Like, why doesn't he have that stuff? Well, because he wasn't doing expansion with it, you know, and he didn't have full scales. He has garbage scales. He has Turmoil 3, right? Good luck
Yeah, he's
spamming
running-
Rangers with that.
Like he's running this very strong bless build, right? And
Right.
that's what his emphasis is. But he picked a target against which this bless is ineffective.
Yeah, I think it's also maybe kind of an interesting point to highlight is like Arco was kind of being a bully, right? How he expanded, how he did Diplo. And Olm took that and was like offended. He's like, this asshole being so rude, doing these things. But it's just like, that doesn't mean it's a good idea to fight them. Like sometimes you have to accept being bullied. And some people don't like that.
Yeah. And then I also think that he didn't have like a very good magic answer online.
Right.
And I don't even know, because
Yeah,
we've
we
kind of
talked
been
about
talking
it.
about like different stuff he could have done, but like it's hard to find an early game magic answer.
It really is. It really
Like you don't have great tools until like, you know, you get like broad blood and stuff.
Yeah. It's really tough for Olm. I mean, I think, you know, the best they can do is like luck spam, I think, early with like Ghoul Guardians can't take luck. So yeah, I don't even know. I mean, aren't Legions of Steel, Strength of Giants, Mass Crossbow, paint your crossbows with luck? I think that's the best you can do for a while, which isn't great.
That and Magic Duel, which we didn't actually see in that battle.
Yes, that's another thing, and that he's been making the wrong mages to do that. But the if you kill all these guys, which you can't kill all of them, you won't be able to kill the Mystics. I mean, the Orphic Mystics, but you'll be able to kill all these guys. Yeah, just be like, okay, this is a bad matchup. I'm just going to Magic Duel you to death. It sucks doing that. You would never want to pick a war where that's your strategy, but I think it was the best strategy here to do that. He just didn't have the mages, so. But it's also a good trade economically for Olm. Like, it's not a horrible thing for them to do, especially if they're leaning into their Astral 1 guys who are 75 gold, because you compare them against the Mystics who are
125, I believe.
135.
135.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually worth the pearl to trade. You know, if you value a pearl,
If you're the
at
only
30
people
gold
on
or
the map,
something.
or
yeah.
But yeah, so from here, So Arco does have a decent broad approach with his army, like in
Mm-hmm.
terms of that he can actually take a bunch of provinces. So he's going to be able to take the province south of the throne with that reinforcement stack.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's going to take the forest with the expansion party. He's going to push north. Oh, he lost the Orphic Mystic. That sucks.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can still take the forest. And then if you look further north, he does have that little raiding party group to the northwest. Yeah, so
Yeah.
those guys can push north into Ulm's cap circle. And then with the army on Ulm's fort, he can chase after Ulm's reinforcements into the forest
Yep.
and then put additional siege stuff onto it from his capital.
Right.
So Arco's in a great position to grab like literally 6 provinces next turn.
Yeah. I think that's the
Or
right
five,
move.
5, sorry.
Because all, like, if the plan to win this is like critical mass of crossbows, like he ain't getting it anymore, right? And the last thing you want to do is take your foot off the gas and let Ulm like rebuild. Because Ulm's basically, if Arco pushes the advantage, not only does Ulm not have a plan that he can use, but he's just completely boned. But if Arco like slow rolls, slowly sieges this fort down, maybe Ulm gets time to like have a round 2 because he's got another fort in the rears to send reinforcements from. Okay.
Yeah, well, we'll see if Arco is able to capitalize on this quickly enough. But from where things stand right now, he should be crushing Ulm within the next, I want to say, like 4 or 5 turns.
And
like Ulm should have his cap siege within the next 3 turns.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Ulm is pretty much boned. I think that's it. We've covered all the wars, I believe, at an hour and 25 minutes. So.
Oh, goodness. We're way over time.
Yeah. Well, pretty fun turn, though. We got that. I mean, we really took our time with that Ulm battle, but it was fun to watch. So I suppose I always end these episodes thanking you and the viewers, but I'd also like to thank the players. Especially thanks to Ulm and Arco for providing this excellent popcorn eating battle to us this turn, and hopefully we get some other excellent battles in the turns to come.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing, which Arco had actually mentioned in his message to us, is that he's going to start making those baboon warriors. It was last turn.
These guys,
where he mentioned this. Yeah, so, and you can see that he's starting to make those guys now. So the thing that he'd mentioned about them is their siege strength.
Right.
Just because these are high strength units.
Right.
But they're also very efficient HP.
Yeah.
So if you're doing like layered buffs and arrow fend and stuff, such that you're not really worried about them just like getting plinked down with their relatively lowish protection, these guys are actually pretty efficient as far as like, just troop guys go, just because they have superhuman hit points and strength. So in Arco's case, I think that like, you obviously want to max out Heart Companions as much as you can afford, but I totally understand why he's going for these as his number 2, just because they can do things that his regular hoplites can't.
Yeah, they're basically pretty good siege chaff that you probably don't want like really on the front line, but you don't have to worry too much about them either.
Yeah, like they're siege chaff that can also fight.
Right. All right, well, thanks so much for joining me, Sai.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for hosting.
And viewers, thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time.